Okay, so we got everything taken apart. I didn't record any of that. You know, there's plenty of videos on that stuff, and I kind of think that if you're in the position where you're advanced enough level to need this type of stuff, you don't need me to record it for you. You should be able to get this far by yourself. I'm gonna clean the tubes out before I do anything. Oh, there's a couple ways you can do this. This is how I do it. I have a little wire wheel attached to a drill bit head into an adapter into a transmission extension that has a lock on it. I just put the end of it on my 1/2-inch driver, stick it in there, all the way down, all the way back. See all that crap coming out of there? Not really too worried about stuff getting into that housing because I need to clean all that stuff out anyway and put my cover back on. So I'm just gonna give it a quick little spurt of ringing. So I've never done this before. This is the first time I've ever done this. So what we're gonna do is grab this one, give it a little wipey poo, and we're just gonna. Oh, that's well, that was easy. Honestly, I was expecting it to be a little tighter than that, but you know, I guess that's fine. So the idea here on this whole thing is that one of the biggest problems with these Dana 30s is that the tubes are only 1/4 inch. It's a piece of pipe basically. You know, it's just a 1/4 inch. So a lot of times you guys think it's invincible and you take it out there and you're beating on stuff and you're coming down. A lot of times they'll crack here or even here or sometimes the C area. So the idea of a truss is that it keeps the whole thing from deflecting. So no matter what you do with this stuff, there's always going to be deflection. You know what I mean? So yeah, the point of these is to keep the whole tube from deflecting and bending. So you could have, you can be like, oh, I've got you know, 1/4 inch tube, or you know, even something like this. I mean, you can bend this. You'd be surprised at how easy this stuff is to bend. All this stuff is super soft. Like all this cast is super soft. I mean, if you take a 8-lug Cummins brake rotor and you set it on the brake lathe and you're making a cut and you touch it while it's doing it, you can deflect it enough to change the cut. So you know, you're looking at this thinking, oh, it's all metal. Well, that's the whole point of this. So what I'm going to do now is, what am I going to do now? I'm going to clean out the other side, and then I'm going to get the drill out, and I'm going to drill some holes in this, probably through both sides, and get the chips cleaned out, and then I'll break out the welder, stick those in there, and we're going to put some welds on the tubes to hold the things in place. So stand by. And so at the exact moment I was sitting there saying, man, I should let this bit cool down a little bit, it just exploded. Pretty excited about that. So there's a strategy to this. When you're doing these holes bigger like that, you can kind of feel it starts to pop and bind a little bit when you get towards the end, and that's when you want to slow down. And so a bit got too hot, and it grabs the metal on the inside there, and it just snapped it right off. So now we got a broken drill bit in there. Ooh, why is this all greasy? Okay, well, there's that hole, and then you can see the drill bit way down in there, and I got some burrs. If you do this right and you slow down enough at the end, you can keep your tip from rounding out. You're not going to be able to see it down in there, but there's no burrs on that because what it'll do is it'll get close and it'll hang up like that, and then if you're not paying attention to it, it'll go all the way through, and sometimes it'll break, or tip will round off. This drill bit's probably, God, I don't know, 10 years old. It's an Irwin. The other thing that'll happen is that bit will stop and your drill will keep going, and it'll come around and smack you in the face or twist your wrist off. Go ahead, ask me how I know. Alright, got the rest of the holes drilled. Nothing too exciting there. Got the tube sleeve in there. So I didn't push it all the way in until it touched the seal. I gave about a 1/4 inch gap there just to kind of, you know, make sure, in case I had to put seals in this in the future, and they're not always the same. So it's about where it's going to be. One thing I am going to do here is hit these holes with the torch first. Just get a little bit of a preheat going on in there. Burn out any of the oil that's left in there, and also the moisture, because this thing's been sitting outside for the last month or so. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but it's turning a nice straw color, orange. Straw color. That's what we want. That's how we know what the temperature is. I don't remember what exactly that temperature is. I think it's like 400 and something degrees. Then take the welder. I gotta do this quick because my bottle is almost empty and my other bottle is inside hooked up to my keg. So turn this thing up to 11. Wonder how the camera liked that. I'm gonna let that cool down a little bit in case it's pulled or distorted or anything in there. I don't want it to crack. So in the meantime, I'll get the torch on that next hole and maybe I'll crack the door. We'll see. Okay. If you're wondering what I'm using for a welder, it's an Everlast Cyclone 200E. It's a pretty good welder. I got some other videos on that. If you're going to buy it, you need to change out the ground because it's junk. It'll burst into flames on you. Go ahead and check that video out if you want. And I'm using a 20-pound bottle of CO2 because it's way more cost effective than using C25. And I just happen to have the 2 bottles. So C25 is okay for, you know, most things. My bottle's empty. Yeah, all my bottles are empty. But CO2 gives you a little bit deeper penetration, and also it's much cheaper. Much, much, much cheaper. Alright, well I guess I'll set this up on time lapse and go from there. Alright, well, there we go. You gotta put in there. I didn't put any heat on the back ones, the holes were too small. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I got plenty. I was kind of thinking about maybe running a pass around the outside here, but I'm not really sure if that's going to be necessary. My bottle's empty, so I might just be stuck with that for now. Got the fans on. It's springtime here in Washington, so we're finally making some power out there to equalize my new set of batteries, so that's exciting. So I guess that's going to wrap it up for this. I'm going to do a separate video talking about those axles here in a minute. We're going to measure them and see what the differences and similarities are. So as far as that goes, it looks like this one's pretty much wrapped up.